Hello, welcome to Movies I Love with yours truly, Nomfanelo Malloy. So, the film that I'll be discussing is The Devil Wears Prada. So, I'm doing this in honor of, well, first off, there's a sequel of this movie called The Devil Wears Prada 2. It's coming out in theaters. I'm sure by the time you watch this video, the film would have already came out in theaters, or maybe perhaps if you're watching this at a later date, it's already out either like on VOD, physical media, and all that stuff. So there's that, and also too, this year marks the first film's 20th anniversary, which is insane. I can't believe this movie is 20 years old. It's like, wow, time flies so fast. But anyways, let's talk about The Devil Wears Prada. So The Devil Wears Prada is a 2006 comedy movie. It is based off the 2003 novel of the same name by Lauren Weisberger. And there's a whole book series with The Devil Wears Prada. There is three of them so far. So the film is directed by David Frankel, who has directed films such as Marley and Me and Collateral Beauty. The film stars Meryl Streep, Anne Hathaway, Stanley Tucci, and Emily Blunt. Yeah, so let's get into it. So I was rewatching it just before recording, and while rewatching it, just made me think that, man, I wish I would have seen this movie in theaters at the time. Because I believe, like, around the time of the original release, I was aware of this movie, but I can't remember why I didn't watch this movie at the time in theaters. But eventually I saw it, like, I rented on DVD or something like that. But yes, neither here or there. But regardless, was fortunate to see the movie anyways. But yeah, I find for me it still holds up. I find like the comedy works. It's a lot of the one liners, I would say, mostly from like Miranda, played by Meryl Streep, and with Stanley Tucci's character Nigel. I guess the notable ones when Nigel says, "Gird your loins," when Miranda Priestley is heading into the office. And of course, with Miranda Priestley with her iconic catchphrase, "That's all." And speaking of Miranda, Miranda is quite the character in this movie. I guess many people that work around her would say she's like the boss, like from hell. Because she runs Runway magazine, which you could say is the equivalent to Vogue magazine. And as she points out in the movie, her opinion, I can't remember if she or other people, but essentially her opinion is what matters because it can essentially make or break uh, not just like the magazine itself, but also to in terms of a person's career. And yeah, she is quite brutal. When one of the fashion designers in the movie is having like a preview of their a collection, Nigel tells Andy the ways that Miranda would react to stuff that either she likes or dislikes, essentially. And when she pouted her lips, that that was funny because apparently that meant that she really hates the look, and yeah, that was quite hilarious with that moment there. But yeah, like Miranda is fierce in this movie for sure, and she clearly gives people a hard time. And yes, she has standards, obviously, but man, she yeah, 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 yeah. Um, but yeah, Meryl Streep did a great job in this movie, and if you remember, she was nominated an Oscar for this movie, which is quite insane if you look at it years later, because you figure with a role like this is something that wouldn't get nominated typically. But in a way, I'm glad that she did get nominated for this movie, because she did a phenomenal job playing the boss from hell, essentially. But I found everyone else did a great job in the movie. Like Anne Hathaway was great. I remember watching it for the first time years ago. That it was, in a way, it was quite different in comparison to her work in The Princess Diaries. Because I would say with this movie, with this role for her, is a bit more of an adult role in comparison to Mia in The Princess Diaries, I would say. And also, too, this movie introduced Emily Blunt, I would say, because it was his first movie that I've seen of hers, and she knocked it out of the park, I would say. And I felt bad for her character when her character got sick, and essentially her character kind of got downgraded, where she had to do all the errands and all this stuff, and eventually, and she unfortunately had the she got into a car accident and all that stuff. But yeah, like Emily Blunt did a great job in this movie. Everyone else did, I would say. One of the highlights I would say with this movie is that it's all about fashion. Like it shows like the ins and outs of fashion in regard, in this case, of a fashion magazine. And yeah, it seems like the people who work there are scared of Miranda and all this stuff, because we've seen multiple times, and Andy learned this the hard way, that if you do something that Miranda dislikes, it's not good. I mean, a moment would be when Andy laughs at the blue belts when they were trying to figure out which one to choose, and they both belts look similar and all that stuff. I mean, I don't blame Andy, but, but yeah, when that happened, and then Miranda gave her speech when Andy was poking fun of it and all that stuff. I mean, wow, it's like wow, 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 wow. And yeah, it's interesting that with Andy. So she wants to be a journalist. She just graduated from college and all that stuff, and she's trying to look for work, but ends up becoming assistant at Runway. And it's clear that um, she did not want to have this job, even though people point out in the movie that a million girls would kill for this job. But Andy is not one of those millions of girls, because I think she just wants to focus on, covering stories and all that stuff for maybe an outlet like New York Times, or something to that vein. But man, it's interesting that with the arc that her character goes through, essentially, where she could care less about fashion, and then as the movie progresses, she's all about fashion and all that stuff. And the people like in her personal life kind of like question the changes that she goes through, essentially. In a way, it felt like kind of bad for her, because it's not her fault that the work interfered with the personal life, even though some would argue that she made a choice, to go into that line of work and all that stuff. But yeah, it clearly shows that balancing personal life with work life is quite a chaotic for Andy, I would say. And eventually that led to her breaking up with Nate and all that stuff. And I've seen apparently some question that Nate could possibly be a villain of this movie, and I never saw that myself. Now, sure, at times he could be a bit like harsh and all that stuff, but I just didn't see him to be a villain, in my opinion. I mean, that's my take on this. Because clearly, because I guess she has expressed to Nate that that she's not a fan of the fashion industry. She's not a fan of the work and all that stuff. And probably in Nate's mind is like, like why, like he's wondering like why waste your time doing something you don't want to do. But you know Andy really has no choice because she has to pay the bills and all that stuff. But she thinks that it could help her career. Essentially, it could open doors and all that stuff. But because yeah, Nate is a chef, if I remember correctly. He wants to be a chef and all that stuff. And yeah, being a chef or a cook working in the food industry is quite demanding job, I would say, as well too. I mean, I've watched like Hell's Kitchen and cooking shows and all that stuff, and it's not easy like with that type of work. But clearly Nate loves that work. But yeah, as for the fashion, yeah, Nate is not a big fan of it and all that stuff. But yeah, I never really saw him to be a villain, even though maybe like at times you question like is he being a little too hard on Andy and all that stuff, even though some of the stuff was not her doing. But I get why like he would be like frustrated because work is always interfering with their personal life and all that stuff. Which reminds me, gee, with some of the demands that Miranda makes, is like, yeah, that's impossible. Because I think she even says at one point, you have to make the impossible possible. And yeah, like, and Miranda is the type where you want to be on her good side, because if you're on her bad side, it's not good. Like when she asks Andy to get the unpublished manuscript for a Harry Potter book. I mean, wow, like that, like that's tough with that one. I would say like the worst one was when Miranda asked Andy to get her a flight back to New York from Miami, despite like the harsh weather conditions, because I think there was a hurricane or something like that. And that's like impossible. And it was just kind of sad to see Miranda like belittle Andy um, after that moment, because again, it wasn't Andy's fault. There was nothing really Andy could do. But again, with Miranda, like with her standards, I would say. But yeah, that was quite harsh for Miranda to do all that stuff. And I guess like with that moment kind of inspired Andy to work harder, and she eventually what got the makeover with the help of Nigel and all that stuff, and took her job more seriously. But yeah, Miranda with the standards are too high, are too high with that one. And what else about this movie? Yeah, the Miranda's like entrance, her first entrance in this movie, of course, is quite, I would say, iconic. Because earlier today I was watching so Olivia Rodrigo is going to be hosting Saturday Night Live, and for like the I guess like the trailer, I suppose they kind of like do their version of that, of Miranda, of the entrance scene with Miranda when everyone's like scrambling, to get ready before she comes and all that stuff. So yeah, that was quite funny with that scene, and it's funny what SNL did with the promos and all that stuff. Hilarious. Um, what else do I want to do? But yeah, and soundtrack, a decent soundtrack, I would say. The score, like itself, is not bad. I did like the music. when Miranda was first coming in to the office earlier than expected. If you remember that piece of score, and of course, there's some notable songs such as Vogue. Madonna has two songs in the movie. There's Vogue, when Nate sees Andy in her new look, and Jump when when she gets a call from Emily. I think was like for her first day at work and all that stuff. Um, and then also too, yeah, Alanis Morissette with her version of "Crazy," which was originally done by Seal. That was great. And also too, I believe U2 has a song. I forgot the name of it, but it's played when Miranda and Andy are in Paris. But yeah, decent soundtrack, I would say. But yeah, this I would say this movie still holds up for me years later, because it's nice that it focuses on the fashion industry mainly through the perspective of the assistants. I would say mainly through Andy's perspective, but yeah, that was quite interesting to see there. And yeah, like it's interesting that it shows like with a demanding job like this how that could interfere with a personal life and all that stuff. Um, which led to Nate and Andy's breakup, unfortunately. But yeah, there is that in terms of what stood out for me with this movie. In terms of critiques that I had, yeah, I would say with some of Miranda's standards are a bit out there, like with the whole flight thing and the manuscript. It's like girls, like calm down. It's like calm down. And I guess one could question, like, does Andy really want to be in fashion? Because after like Paris, I believe, like when she was trying to warn Miranda and all that stuff, like as they're like in the car, and then Miranda leaves the car, but Andy, she decides to walk away from the job and all that stuff. But then we see her getting interviewed by a news outlet, a job interview, I would say. And it's safe to assume that she gets in all this stuff. But I just wondered though, like, does she really want to be in the fashion industry? Like, sure, she may like have an appreciation for fashion like as she eased into the job, but you just question, like, does she really want to be in fashion? Who knows? And I'm really curious with the sequel, what's gonna happen there, because I have not seen it as of the time of this recording. But I'm curious with the arc that Andy goes through in that, also too for the rest of the characters in the movie as well too. Um, yeah, and I just felt that yeah, with her, Andy's friends were a bit too harsh on her. Like, I get that, they want Andy to be more present and all that stuff, but I just felt at times they're just a bit too harsh on her, especially got towards the later half of the movie. And yeah, with Christian Thompson, yeah, he's quite the character there. So I guess he's supposed to be in a way like a rival love interest to Andy, even though like Andy like, looked at him to be more as maybe like a mentor figure, because she said that she appreciated like his work and all that stuff. But yeah, once when they make out in Paris and all this stuff, I'm just kind of like, where is this coming from? But it seems like, I guess they want to establish that that with Christian Thompson is kind of like sleazy and all that stuff. So I know some people want to say Nate is villain, but you could argue Christian Thompson, like he is a villain in a way though, even though he helps Andy out. But I'm like, I mean, we should look at him more than Nate, in my opinion. But yeah, there's that, because I think also too, yeah, he is not a fan of Miranda, and kind of wanted to do the hostile takeover with Jacqueline to run runway and all that stuff. even though I never really saw like him, to be a part of that world, but I guess it is what it is, I suppose. But yeah, that's what I had in terms of critiques. So that's essentially what I had to say for this movie. But I do want to point out that I saw this before recording, that on Google, when you Google "The Devil Wears Prada," it shows a little something here. So I'm on like the page here. So when you click on the shoe icon here, it shows the it shows the iconic red heels walking across the board, which is interesting. So clearly, they're doing this in honor of the sequel coming out. And I imagine, like when you search "Devil Wears Prada 2," this is probably going to come up as well too. But yeah, I find this is quite interesting here. So there's that. So that's all what I have to share in regards to the Devil Wears Prada. Let me know what you think about this movie in the comment section. Do you have any like favorite scenes, favorite aspects of the movie, or there are aspects of the movie that you did not like? Also, too, are you looking forward to the sequel? Let me know. Also, too, if you read any of the books, let me know what you think of the books, and also too in comparison to the film, how that is. Love to know all that stuff in the comments section. So if you want to support me, you could visit buymeacoffee.com/Nomfanelo, where you could donate and also to look at exclusive posts there. Also, too, I do have community tab here on my YouTube channel. So if you subscribe to the channel, feel free to leave comments there as long as it's under community guidelines. And if you want to follow me on social media, my links are in the description. So I want to say thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to catch you on the next one.